Ah, the holidays. That time of year where you spend time with your family and enjoy many holiday traditions. For me, I actually spend Christmas Eve with my dad and Christmas with my mom, so I have two Christmases. And whenever my mom makes holiday candies and treats, I'm the one who makes the peanut butter balls. And actually, as of last year, my aunt passed down a Christmas craft to me. They're these mailbox ornaments with the current year on them, and you can make them out of plastic canvas and yarn. But obviously the biggest tradition that everyone has is that you spend time with your family. I mean, how else would all your other traditions form in the first place? So understand that I wanted to make my last review of 2014 something kind of special and relating to family and loved ones in some way. Even if the subject matter of this one is a little bit dark. Shigofumi is a 12-episode drama fantasy psychological series based on the set of light novels by Ryo Amamiya and published in Japan by MediaWorks. The anime, produced by JC Staff and director Tatsuo Sato, aired during the winter 2008 season. A 24-minute OVA episode, produced by JC Staff and director Sato, was released in September of the same year. As of this review, Shigofumi is licensed in the US by Sentai Filmworks and is available for legal streaming via the Anime Network.
Are some secrets best kept with the dead? For most Shigofumi mail deliverers charged with delivering messages from the recently departed to those left behind, the question is purely rhetorical, as most deliverers are dead themselves and past the point of caring about the still breathing. The solemn girl known as Fumika, however, is all too aware of the mortal perspective, for she is still aging, an indicator that she is somehow mysteriously still alive. Yet neither Fumika's own personal tragedy nor the knowledge that her mail may be a mixed blessing at best will stay her grim determination to make her morbid rounds. Though the postal scales of fate may be eternally shifted, Fumika will make sure each posthumous posting from the Ultimate Dead Letter Office reaches its intended target, because for these letters, there's no return sender.
When looking at the animation and its quality, I'd say that Shigofumi falls into a different line than some of JC Staff's previous works. Really, if you were to compare Shigofumi with a couple of their other well-known series, let's say Revolutionary Girl Utena and Shakugan no Shana, both series that are also serious in tone, I'd say really the difference between these two and Shigofumi is the difference in color scheme.
For Shigofumi, it isn't as overtly colorful as a good amount of series in the studio's history, including their recent works like Selector Infected WXOSS or the Railgun Index franchise. It's much more muted a majority of the time, sometimes even a little dreamlike. The atmosphere and background seem much more dark, almost apocalyptic looking at times, which can help deepen its themes even more. Everything seems much more bleak and depressing at times, which is what really stood out to me. It doesn't need immense amounts of bright color in order to look amazing. This isn't the kind of show that calls for it. As for the soundtrack, it manages to be used to great effect, with the piano played in a minor key as the most common instrument used for these tracks. Just add in some more darker elements and presto! I shouldn't be surprised at how wonderful the soundtrack is, seeing as how Hikaru Nanase has also had a hand in both the Canon and Phantom Requiem for the Phantom soundtracks as well, with Phantoms almost having a similar haunting tone that Shigofumi has.
There are two major elements that make up Shigofumi's story.
The first and rather obvious one is the episodic approach, where Fumika encounters people as she delivers letters, sometimes getting caught up in what's going on at the time, such as murders and bullying, while the intended recipients vary from high school students to cats.
No, seriously, there's an episode where Fumika and Chaiki chase around a cat in order to deliver their letters.
With these storylines, they are the ones that focus on different scenarios, like the murder and bullying I just mentioned, but they are also the ones that have some of the series' most emotional moments. Because of the circumstances some of the episodic characters get into, the end result of those same stories can make someone cry like a whimpering little baby. You think I'm joking? Try watching episode 10. It's an episode where Fumika isn't really all that involved, and yet was the one episode I could not stop crying over. I had to take a break from the show for a few minutes just to pull myself together again.
As for the second plot element, this focuses more on Fumika and the mystery of her existence. And this is actually also where we get to see a small group of recurring characters in order to help tell that story.
As much of a dark and emotional storyline as it was, if I had to be honest, there were times where it seemed a little lacking. not 100% sure what it is that bugs me about it so much. Maybe it's because I expected a more episodic series rather than one with a somewhat hidden plotline. But I will say that Fumika's story is probably just as tragic as many of the characters we see in the more episodic episodes anyway, so I can't really complain too much. The story overall just sends you on a journey, and it uses human instinct and emotion in order to create the mood it wants.
Now's a good time as any to talk about characters. Although there's a plethora of characters in the more episodic episodes, there's still that handful of characters I mentioned before that help out in the Fumika storyline.
First, let's talk about Fumika herself. As the main character of the series, Fumika is rather stoic and only concerns herself with her work. As the series progresses, she begins to gain a bigger sense of calm than she had before as her past and current present slowly come to light. Kaname is connected to Fumika from episode 1, even though he didn't actually have to be there for the first couple of episodes thanks to his detective father. Kaname's goal throughout the series is to try and solve the mystery of Fumika's disappearance and crime she committed when the two of them were in middle school together. This, of course, comes after he sees her again as she delivers a letter to a fellow classmate of his. Oh, and he's had a crush on Fumika since middle school. Natsuka is another character connected to Fumika from middle school. She helps Kaname try to get in contact with Fumika once again, but also develops feelings for Kaname in the process. She's a bit of a tomboy at times, liking older samurai films and dressing a bit more boyish, but she still has a strong and compassionate heart. Lastly, the other major character I feel needs some mention is a coworker of Fumika's named Chaiki. She's been a mail deliverer for at least 50 years and also seems to have an attachment to Fumika because of her ability to age compared to other mail carriers who are unable to. She prides herself in her charm and womanly intellect while at the same time has a very strong, caring personality. There are other characters in the Fumika storyline that each bring something to the table, like the staff with a desire to be human, Kanaka, Natsuka's hardworking older sister Haruno, and even Fumika's novelist father, but their roles are fairly limited.
Although the majority of the character development comes from the recipients of the letters, both Fumika and Chaiki also gain development throughout the series. This creates a new side of the story as well as a new perspective in order to view our mail carriers from. Because of the past that these two have, we now gain a deeper understanding as to what they had to leave behind at the time of their deaths. The Japanese voice acting is one of those things where I've been watching a lot of recent anime and I've had a lot of voice acting and Japanese casts in my brain. So when looking at Shigofumi, I'd say the voice acting for this one is kind of in the middle. It's not really a bad product, but at the same time, it's not anything outstanding or amazing. Really, what it kind of comes down to is the individual performances.
Kana Ueda's performance as Fumika was enjoyable but did have some flat moments, mostly due to the nature of her character, making the moments that aren't as flat much more fulfilling for her character. Yuki Matsuoka's Kanaka, along with Saiko Chiba's Natsuka, brought in so much life to their roles, helping to keep the series from getting from that overly depressing state. Same can be said of Masumi Asano's portrayal of Chaiki, but as the oldest member of the major cast, she also plays the older senpai role rather well. Rikiya Kiyoma's role as Kirameki was probably one of the most eccentric and yet insane performances that I did not know could exist. I say this because I didn't think Lord Death from Soul Eater was capable of such a thing. As for Kaname, Takuma Terashima's performance was okay, but it was among the weaker ones for me.
The cast as a whole was rather solid, and I actually have very few complaints about it. Again, what it kind of comes down to is I've been watching a lot of recent shows, and the voice acting for those is kind of a little bit better, but all things considered, I can't hold it against Shigofumi too much. By the time we read our letters, Shigofumi is something beautiful in both story and theme. Its message can have its very powerful moments, and at the same time, it has characters that anyone can relate to. Though it has twisted moments in its story, and the overall story isn't all that strong, it's still a series where the dead will write and tell you how they feel, whether good or bad, and then the viewer just bawls like a little baby while they're the ones who decides who is in the right and who is in the wrong. Okay, this probably isn't the best thing I should be reviewing for the holidays, but this is the first time I've watched it, so I wasn't 100% sure what I was getting into. But anyways, Shigofumi is something absolutely beautiful, and I think it deserves a little bit more appreciation. Next time, we're back to aliens, but this time we add in an alchemist. Until 2015, happy holidays, and otaku on, my friends.
モノクロに差す光